January 29, 1945. Holzheim, Belgium. The snow falls heavy and silent. Each flake adds weight to the frozen hell that is the Ardennes. First Sergeant Leonard Funk rounds the corner of a stone farmhouse, boots crunching through waist-deep drifts. His breath clouds the air. His Thompson submachine gun hangs loose on his shoulder. He expects to find his men, for guards watching 80 German prisoners. Instead, he finds 90 armed enemy soldiers staring back at him. They wear white camouflage capes. They hold rifles. They stand where his men should be. And in the center of the yard, a German officer turns. His eyes lock onto Funk. The officer's machine pistol rises. The cold steel presses into Funk's stomach. The word comes sharp and clear. Surrender. Funk stands 5'5". He weighs 140 pounds. He is alone, surrounded, outgunned, facing certain death. And then, impossibly, Leonard Funk begins to laugh. To understand the man who laughed in the face of death, you have to go back. Back before the snow. Before Belgium. Before the war tried and failed to break him. Leonard Alfred Funk Jr. was born on August 27, 1916, in Braddock Township, Pennsylvania, a coal and steel town west of Pittsburgh. The kind of place that built America on the backs of men who knew how to work. His father was a coal miner. The family was modest, hard-working, unremarkable. Leonard grew up small, always the shortest in his class, but he carried something his size couldn't measure. A stubbornness, a refusal to back down. He worked odd jobs through the Depression. He knew what it meant to struggle. And when the world began tearing itself apart across the Atlantic, when Hitler's armies rolled through Poland and France, Leonard Funk didn't wait for the draft. On June 24, 1941, 6 months before Pearl Harbor, he walked into a recruiting office in Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania, and enlisted in the United States Army. He was 24 years old. The Army sent him to basic training. Then they offered him something more. Something dangerous. Airborne school. The chance to jump out of perfectly good airplanes into enemy territory. Most men would hesitate. Funk volunteered immediately. He completed jump school at Fort Benning, Georgia, and earned his silver wings. They assigned him to Company C, 1st Battalion, 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment, part of the legendary 82nd Airborne Division, the All-Americans. By 1943, Funk was stationed in England. The 82nd was training, preparing, waiting for the order that would send them into the heart of Nazi-occupied Europe. Funk was promoted to squad leader, then platoon sergeant. His men noticed something about him. He never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do first. He led from the front. He was calm under fire, and despite his small frame, he moved through combat like a man twice his size. Then came June 6, 1944, D-Day. The night sky over Normandy roared with the sound of C-47 transport planes. Inside, paratroopers sat in silence, checking their gear, saying prayers, thinking of home. Leonard Funk sat among them. His face was painted. His rifle was ready. At 0100 hours, the green light flashed. The jumpmaster shouted, "Go!" Funk leaped into the darkness. The drop was chaos. Anti-aircraft fire lit the sky. Planes exploded midair. Paratroopers were scattered across 40 miles of Norman countryside. Funk landed hard, miles from his designated drop zone. He gathered the men he could find, soldiers from different units, strangers in the dark, and formed them into a fighting unit. For 10 days, this improvised squad fought through hedgerows, ambushed German patrols, and pushed inland. Not one man under Funk's command was killed. For his leadership during those 10 days, Leonard Funk was awarded the Silver Star. But Normandy was only the beginning. September 1944, Operation Market Garden. The Allied planned to seize bridges across the Rhine and end the war by Christmas. The 82nd Airborne jumped into Holland. Funk's regiment landed near Nijmegen. The mission, secure key bridges and hold them against German counterattacks. It was supposed to be quick. It turned into a bloodbath. One afternoon, Funk led a 3-man patrol near the drop zone. They spotted 3 German 20mm anti-aircraft guns firing on incoming American gliders. The guns were heavily defended. 20 enemy soldiers manned the position. A smart commander would have called in artillery, requested air support, waited for reinforcements. Leonard Funk charged. He and his 2 men assaulted the position head-on. Funk moved like a shadow, low and fast. He threw grenades into the gun pits. He fired his Thompson in controlled bursts. Within minutes, all 3 guns were silenced. 20 German soldiers lay dead. Funk's patrol suffered 0 casualties. For this action, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the 2nd highest military decoration in the United States Army, just below the Medal of Honor. His men started calling him Napoleon. Not as a joke, as respect, because the little sergeant fought like a giant. By late 1944, Funk had been promoted to 1st Sergeant, the highest enlisted rank in his company. He was responsible for the lives of over 100 men. He wore the Silver Star and the Distinguished Service Cross on his chest. He had jumped into 2 of the most violent campaigns in the European theater. He had been wounded twice, earning 2 Purple Hearts. And he was only 28 years old. But the war wasn't finished with Leonard Funk. Not yet. December 16th, 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The Germans launched their last great gamble, Operation Walk am Rhein, a massive surprise offensive aimed at splitting the Allied lines, recapturing the vital port of Antwerp, and forcing the Western Allies to negotiate peace. Over 200,000 German troops, supported by more than 1,000 tanks, smashed through a lightly defended section of the American line. The attack came during one of the coldest winters in recorded history. Snow and fog grounded Allied aircraft. Roads turned to ice. Visibility dropped to 0. The Americans called it the Battle of the Bulge. Initial German gains were catastrophic. Entire American units were surrounded. The 101st Airborne Division was encircled at Bastogne. Panic spread through Allied command. General Dwight D. Eisenhower scrambled to respond. He ordered every available reserve unit into the fight. Among them, the 82nd Airborne Division. On December 17th, the 82nd received emergency orders. Pack up. Move out. No time to prepare. No time to rest. They loaded onto trucks and drove through the night toward Belgium. Their mission, plug the gap. Hold the northern shoulder of the German advance. Stop the bleeding. Leonard Funk and Company C, 508th Parachute Infantry, arrived in Belgium on December 20th. The temperature had dropped to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Snow fell in sheets. The men were exhausted. Most hadn't slept in days. They dug foxholes in frozen ground. They fought off German probes. They held the line. By early January 1945, the German offensive had stalled. The weather cleared. Allied air power returned. American forces began pushing back. The 82nd Airborne, battered but unbroken, went on the offensive. Their objective, clear the remaining German pockets, liberate occupied villages, push the enemy back across the border into Germany. On January 28, 1945, Company C received new orders. Advance 15 miles through a driving snowstorm. Assault and capture the village of Holzheim. Intelligence reported the town was lightly defended. Maybe a platoon of German infantry. Maybe less. It should be a quick operation. The march began before dawn. The snow was relentless. Visibility dropped to 20 feet. The men trudged through drifts that reached their waists. The cold cut through their uniforms. Frostbite claimed fingers and toes. But they kept moving. Leonard Funk moved with them. He walked among his men, checking on them, keeping their spirits up. When one soldier stumbled, Funk pulled him to his feet. When another wanted to stop, Funk kept him moving. 15 miles. Through a blizzard. In sub-zero temperatures. It took all day. They reached the outskirts of Holzheim in the late afternoon. The town sat quiet under a blanket of white. Stone farmhouses clustered along narrow streets. Smoke rose from a few chimneys. No movement. No sound. It looked abandoned. But then the artillery opened up. German 88mm guns hidden in the hills began shelling the American positions. Rounds screamed overhead and exploded in the snow. Shrapnel tore through the air. Men dove for cover. The lightly defended village was a trap. Company C's executive officer, the second in command, was hit by shrapnel. He went down bleeding. Medics rushed to him. The company was leaderless in the middle of an artillery barrage. Chaos threatened to take hold. Leonard Funk didn't hesitate. He stepped into the role. He took command. He organized the scattered men into assault teams. He pulled clerks and cooks from the company headquarters, men who weren't trained infantrymen, and formed them into a makeshift platoon. He pointed to the town and said, "We're taking those houses. Follow me." And he charged into Holzheim, under artillery fire, under harassing fire from German machine guns positioned on the right flank. Through waist-deep snow, Funk led 30 men into the first row of houses. They kicked in doors. They cleared rooms. They threw grenades into cellars. They fought with rifles, bayonets, and fists. The Germans fought back hard, but they couldn't stop Funk. Within 2 hours, Company C had cleared 15 houses. They captured 30 German soldiers. Not a single American was killed. The rest of the company pushed through the town. They moved block by block, house by house. By nightfall, Holzheim was in American hands. They had captured 80 German prisoners in total. It was a stunning success. But the company was under strength. They had taken casualties in the preceding weeks. They didn't have enough men to guard the prisoners and continue clearing the town at the same time. Funk made a decision. He assigned 4 men, all he could spare, to guard the 80 prisoners. He placed them in the yard of a farmhouse on the edge of town. The rest of the company moved deeper into Holzheim to mop up isolated pockets of resistance. The prisoners sat in the snow, disarmed, hands on their heads. The 4 American guards stood watch, rifles ready. It should have been routine. The fighting was over. The town was secure. But war is never routine. Somewhere beyond the American perimeter, a German patrol moved through the snow. They wore white camouflage capes, the same type the Americans used. They looked like friendlies. They approached the farmhouse slowly, carefully. The American guards didn't realize the danger until it was too late. The German patrol rushed the guards. They overwhelmed them. They freed the 80 prisoners. They rearmed them with weapons hidden in the farmhouse. Within minutes, the Germans had retaken control of the yard. They had 90 armed men. They were preparing to counterattack Company C from the rear. And that's when Leonard Funk walked around the corner. Fear is a survival mechanism. It sharpens the senses. It triggers adrenaline. It tells the body to fight or flee. Every soldier feels it. The rookie and the veteran. The coward and the hero. Fear is universal. But some men learn to master it. Leonard Funk had been in combat for 7 months. He had jumped into Normandy under enemy fire. He had fought through the hell of Market Garden. He had survived 2 wounds. He had seen friends die. He had killed men at close range. By January 1945, fear was no longer an unknown force. It was a familiar companion, and Funk had learned to control it. When he rounded that corner and found himself face to face with 90 armed Germans, his brain processed the situation in fractions of a second. Surrounded, outgunned, no escape. The logical response would have been panic, surrender, acceptance of death. Funk chose defiance. The laugh was not hysteria. It was not bravado. It was a conscious psychological weapon. Funk didn't speak German. He couldn't negotiate. He couldn't bluff with words. But he could project absolute confidence. He could make the enemy believe he was unafraid, that he knew something they didn't. The German officer shouted orders. He shoved the machine pistol harder into Funk's stomach. He demanded surrender, and Funk just kept laughing. The Germans hesitated. Confusion spread. Why was this American laughing? Was it a trick? Was he insane? Did he have reinforcements nearby? The psychological advantage shifted. For a critical moment, the Germans were reacting to Funk instead of the other way around. That moment was all he needed. The Thompson submachine gun. The Tommy gun. A legend of American firepower. Designed in 1918, too late for World War I, it became the iconic weapon of gangsters, G-men, and paratroopers. The M1A1 variant that Leonard Funk carried weighed 10 pounds. It fired .45 ACP rounds at 600 rounds per minute. Effective range, 50 yards. Magazine capacity, 30 rounds. In the hands of a trained soldier, it was devastating. Funk had trained with the Thompson for 3 years. He knew its weight, its balance, its recoil pattern. He could field strip it blindfolded. He could clear a jam in seconds. He had fired thousands of rounds in training and combat. The weapon was an extension of his body. When the German officer demanded surrender, Funk slowly began to unsling the Thompson from his shoulder. The motion appeared compliant. He moved as if to hand over the weapon. The officer relaxed slightly. The other Germans watched. No one fired. Funk's hands moved with practiced precision. The Thompson's muzzle swung in a smooth arc. In less than a second, the barrel aligned with the German officer's chest. Funk squeezed the trigger. The Thompson roared. .45 caliber rounds tore through the officer at point-blank range. The muzzle flash lit the snow. The officer collapsed. Funk didn't stop. He pivoted. He swept the muzzle across the yard. He fired in controlled bursts, 3 to 5 rounds per target. Center mass. The way he'd been trained. The Thompson's rate of fire was overwhelming. In confined spaces, against mass targets, it was a killing machine. Funk didn't aim at individuals. He aimed at the mass. He let the weapon's natural spread do the work. Germans fell. Bodies dropped into the snow. The magazine emptied in seconds. 30 rounds. Gone. Funk had no time to reload. But he had done enough. The shock of his attack had broken the German formation. The 4 American guards, previously disarmed and helpless, scrambled to grab weapons from fallen Germans. Other members of Company C, hearing the gunfire, came running. The Thompson submachine gun had turned the tide. For the Germans in that farmhouse yard, January 29th should have been a triumph. They had been captured earlier in the day. Disarmed. Defeated. Forced to sit in the freezing snow while American soldiers decided their fate. But then their comrades arrived. A German patrol, moving quietly through the snowstorm, had found them. The guards were overpowered. Weapons were distributed. Suddenly, they were free, armed, ready to fight. They outnumbered the Americans in the immediate area 10 to 1. They had the element of surprise. They could attack Company C from behind, slaughter the scattered units, retake the town. Victory was within reach. Then the small American sergeant walked into the yard. He was alone. One man. 5'5". He looked like a boy. The German officer moved to capture him. It would be easy. A machine pistol to the stomach. A shouted command. The American would surrender. One more prisoner. But the American laughed. It made no sense. The German officer grew angry. He shouted louder. He pushed the pistol harder. Still the American laughed. And then, in a motion too fast to stop, the American submachine gun came up. The officer died first. His body hit the snow before his brain registered the pain. The Americans called it a Thompson. The Germans called it Teufelsmasken, the devil's machine. The sound was deafening in the enclosed yard. Muzzle flashes lit the falling snow like strobes. Germans fell. Some tried to raise their rifles. Some tried to run. Some froze in shock. The small American sergeant moved like a demon. He didn't stop firing until his magazine was empty. And then the other Americans arrived. The guards grabbed German weapons and opened fire. More American soldiers came running from the houses. The Germans were caught in a crossfire. They were packed tightly in the yard with nowhere to go. It was a slaughter. In less than 60 seconds, the triumphant reversal became a massacre. 21 Germans lay dead. 24 more were wounded. The rest threw down their weapons and surrendered again. The small American sergeant stood in the center of the carnage, calm and unshaken. The Germans who survived would never forget him. Their names are lost to history. 4 American soldiers assigned to guard 80 German prisoners, while the rest of Company C mopped up Holzheim. It was supposed to be a safe job. The fighting was over. The prisoners were disarmed. All they had to do was watch and wait. Then the men in white camouflage appeared. At first, the guards thought they were American. Both sides used white snow capes in the Ardennes. The figures approached slowly, calling out in broken English. The guards lowered their weapons. And then the Germans rushed them. It happened fast. Rifle butts to the head. Fists and boots. The guards were disarmed, beaten, forced to their knees in the snow. The German prisoners surged to their feet. Weapons were pulled from hiding places in the farmhouse. Rifles, machine pistols, grenades. Within minutes, the tables had turned completely. The 4 guards knelt in the snow, hands on their heads, surrounded by armed enemies. They were certain they were about to die. Execution was common on both sides. Prisoners were a burden. In the chaos of combat, mercy was rare. They waited for the gunshots. Instead, they heard Leonard Funk laugh. The guards looked up. Their first sergeant stood in the middle of the yard, surrounded, a German officer shoving a pistol into his gut. And Funk was laughing like he'd just heard the funniest joke of his life. Then Funk's Thompson came up. The German officer's chest exploded. The yard erupted in gunfire. And suddenly, the 4 guards weren't prisoners anymore. They were soldiers again. They dove for the nearest German weapons. They came up firing. They moved on instinct and training. The Germans were packed tightly, confused, caught off guard. The guards poured fire into the mass. Germans screamed. Some tried to fight back. Most just died. In less than a minute, it was over. The guards stood among the bodies, breathing hard, covered in blood and snow. Leonard Funk stood in the center, calmly ejecting the spent magazine from his Thompson. One of the guards would later say, "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen." Leonard Funk was 5'5" and weighed 140 pounds. By modern standards, he was undersized. By 1940 standards, he was average for his height. But size has never been the measure of a soldier's effectiveness. Speed, endurance, and mental toughness matter more. Funk had all 3. Airborne training was brutal. Candidates ran miles every day. They did hundreds of push-ups and sit-ups. They marched with full packs in the Georgia heat. They climbed ropes, scaled walls, and carried wounded comrades. Only the toughest made it through. Funk didn't just survive the training. He excelled. When he jumped into Normandy, he carried over 60 pounds of gear. Rifle, ammunition, grenades, rations, water, medical supplies. He landed hard in the dark, rolled to absorb the impact, and immediately started moving. For 10 days, he operated on minimal food and no sleep. He marched. He fought. He led. His body never quit. By January 1945, Funk had been in combat for 7 months. He had been wounded twice. He had endured frostbite, exhaustion, malnutrition. His body was a map of scars. But he was still moving, still fighting, still leading from the front. That physical conditioning saved his life in the farmhouse yard. When he brought the Thompson up, his hands didn't shake. When he pivoted to engage multiple targets, his legs didn't buckle. When the adrenaline spiked and his heart rate soared, his muscle memory took over. He moved with economy and precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation. The Germans were younger, better fed, better rested, but they weren't better trained. And they weren't Leonard Funk. In war, luck matters. A bullet passes an inch to the left instead of an inch to the right. A shell lands 5 feet away instead of 3. A soldier stumbles at the exact moment a sniper fires. Luck saves lives and takes them, randomly and without mercy. Leonard Funk was lucky. The German officer hesitated instead of shooting immediately. The other Germans were confused instead of aggressive. Funk's Thompson didn't jam when he squeezed the trigger. The magazine was full instead of half empty. Any one of those variables could have changed the outcome. But luck alone doesn't explain what happened in that farmhouse yard. Funk's decision to laugh was skill, a psychological tactic that bought him seconds. His smooth, deceptive motion with the Thompson was skill, hours of training distilled into one perfect action. His controlled bursts of fire were skill, marksmanship, and weapon handling honed through years of practice. His ability to move and pivot without panic was skill, physical conditioning, and mental toughness forged in combat. Luck gave Funk a chance. Skill kept him alive. The Germans in that yard were unlucky. They hesitated when they should have acted. They clustered when they should have spread out. They assumed surrender when they should have expected violence. But their real failure wasn't luck. It was a lack of preparation. They weren't ready for a man like Leonard Funk. In combat, luck and skill dance together. The luckiest soldier in the world will die if he's untrained. The most skilled soldier in the world will die if his luck runs out. Leonard Funk had both. And on January 29th, 1945, that combination made him unstoppable. January 29th, 1945. 1,600 hours. Holzheim, Belgium. Leonard Funk is tired. The kind of tired that goes beyond the body. The kind that settles into the bones and stays there. He's been awake for 36 hours. He marched 15 miles through a blizzard. He led an assault on a fortified village. He took command when his superior officer was wounded. He cleared 15 houses room by room. He organized his scattered, exhausted men and captured 80 prisoners without losing a single soldier. Now, finally, the town is secure. The shooting has stopped. The men are digging in for the night. Hot food is coming up from the rear. For a few hours, maybe, they can rest. Funk needs to check on the prisoners. Make sure the guards have everything they need. It's routine. A 5-minute walk across the town to the farmhouse on the edge of the perimeter. He slings his Thompson over his shoulder. He lights a cigarette. He steps into the snow. The farmhouse sits quiet. Smoke rises from the chimney. No movement in the yard. Funk rounds the corner, and everything stops. The yard is full of armed men. 90 of them. Germans. They wear white camouflage capes. They hold rifles and machine pistols. They stand in tight formation, clustered near the farmhouse door. Some are adjusting their weapons. Some are checking ammunition. They're preparing for something. Funk's mind processes the scene in an instant. The 4 American guards are on their knees, disarmed, hands behind their heads. The German prisoners have been freed and rearmed. A patrol must have slipped through the perimeter. This isn't a guard detail anymore. It's a counterattack force. And they haven't seen him yet. Funk could back away. Quietly. Retreat around the corner. Run back to the main body of Company C. Sound the alarm. Bring reinforcements. That would be the smart move. The safe move. But if he retreats, the Germans will launch their attack. They'll hit Company C from behind. His men are scattered, tired, unprepared. The Germans will slaughter them. Retake the town. Turn victory into disaster. Funk doesn't retreat. He steps forward into the yard. A German soldier turns. His eyes widen. He shouts. Other Germans turn. The yard erupts in motion. Rifles swing toward Funk. Voices shout in German. An officer pushes through the crowd. He's tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the insignia of a lieutenant. He strides toward Funk with a machine pistol in his hand. The lieutenant stops 3 feet away. He raises the pistol. The barrel presses into Funk's stomach. The metal is cold even through his uniform. The officer's face is red, angry. He shouts in German. Funk doesn't understand the words, but he understands the meaning. Surrender. Drop your weapon. Hands up. Funk looks at the officer. He looks at the 90 armed men surrounding him. He looks at the machine pistol pressed into his gut. He knows he's going to die. There's no escape. No backup. No miracle. And then, impossibly, Leonard Funk smiles. The smile becomes a chuckle. The chuckle becomes a laugh. A deep, genuine laugh. It echoes across the silent yard. The Germans stare. The officer's face grows redder. He shouts louder. He shoves the pistol harder. Funk keeps laughing. The officer is furious now. His voice rises to a scream. He's gesturing with his free hand, pointing at Funk's Thompson, demanding surrender. Funk nods. Still laughing. He reaches for the Thompson with both hands. Slowly, carefully, as if to comply. The officer relaxes slightly. The other Germans watch. The tension eases. The American is surrendering. Funk's hands grip the Thompson's stock and barrel. He begins to lift it from his shoulder. The motion is smooth, unhurried. He's unsling the weapon to hand it over. The officer steps back slightly to receive it, and Leonard Funk moves. The Thompson doesn't come off his shoulder. It pivots. Funk's right hand snaps to the pistol grip. His left hand steadies the barrel. The muzzle swings up in a tight arc. The officer's eyes widen. His mouth opens to shout. His finger tightens on the machine pistol's trigger. Funk is faster. The Thompson roars. The sound is deafening. Muzzle flash lights the snow. 3.45 caliber rounds punch through the officer's chest at point-blank range. The impact lifts him off his feet. He's dead before his body hits the ground. Funk doesn't stop. His finger stays on the trigger. The Thompson bucks in his hands. He pivots left. Controlled bursts. 3 rounds. 5 rounds. Germans fall. He pivots right. More bursts. More bodies. The weapon's recoil is fierce but manageable. He's fired this gun 1,000 times. His muscles know the rhythm. The Germans react slowly. Shock. Confusion. They're packed together in the yard. No room to maneuver. Some try to raise their rifles. Funk cuts them down. Some try to dive for cover. Funk cuts them down. Some freeze. Funk cuts them down. Brass casings spray into the snow. Smoke pours from the Thompson's barrel. The magazine holds 30 rounds. Funk fires in disciplined bursts. He doesn't spray. He doesn't panic. He selects targets and engages. Center mass. Controlled breathing. Just like training. 10 seconds. 15 Germans dead. The magazine is half empty. Funk pivots again. He sees the 4 American guards on their knees. They're staring at him, mouths open, frozen in shock. Funk shouts at them. His voice cuts through the chaos. Grab weapons. Fight. The guards snap out of their paralysis. They scramble forward. Dead Germans lie everywhere. Rifles, machine pistols, grenades, all within reach. The guards grab the nearest weapons. They come up firing. The Germans are breaking now. The shock of Funk's attack has shattered their cohesion. Some are trying to fight back. Some are trying to run. Some are trying to surrender. The yard is chaos. Smoke. Blood. Screaming. Funk's Thompson clicks empty. 30 rounds gone. He drops to one knee. He ejects the magazine. It falls into the snow. He reaches for a spare mag on his belt. His hands are steady. Fast. He slams the fresh magazine home. Pulls the bolt. The Thompson is ready again. He stands. He finds new targets. He fires. Germans go down. The 4 guards are moving now, spreading out, firing from cover. More Americans are arriving. The sound of gunfire has drawn men from across the town. Paratroopers from Company C come running. They see the fight. They join it. The Germans are surrounded now. Outnumbered. Outgunned. Some throw down their weapons. Some keep fighting. Funk moves through the yard like a machine. He fires. He reloads. He fires again. His face is calm. His movements are precise. There's no rage. No fear. Just cold, professional violence. 20 seconds. 21 Germans dead. A German soldier lunges at Funk from the side. He's young, terrified, desperate. He swings his rifle like a club. Funk sidesteps. The rifle misses. Funk brings the Thompson stock up in a sharp arc. It connects with the German's jaw. Bone cracks. The soldier drops. 30 seconds. More Germans surrender. They throw rifles into the snow. They raise their hands. They shout "Kamerad." The German word for comrade, for surrender. The Americans hold fire. The shooting slows. Stops. 45 seconds. The fight is over. Leonard Funk stands in the center of the farmhouse yard. His Thompson is smoking. His uniform is splattered with blood. Around him, the snow is red. Bodies lie everywhere. Some are still. Some are writhing, moaning, bleeding out. The 4 American guards are alive, unhurt. The Germans who surrendered are on their knees again, hands on their heads. Funk ejects the magazine from his Thompson. He checks the chamber. He safes the weapon. His hands don't shake. His breathing is steady. He looks around the yard, counting bodies, assessing the situation. 21 Germans dead. 24 wounded. The rest recaptured. One of the American guards approaches Funk. The man is pale, trembling. He stares at the carnage. He looks at Funk. He opens his mouth, but no words come out. Funk lights a cigarette. He takes a drag. He exhales smoke into the cold air. And then he says, in a flat, matter-of-fact tone, "That was the stupidest thing I've ever done." The guard laughs. Not because it's funny. Because the tension has to break somehow. Because they're alive and they shouldn't be. Because Leonard Funk just killed 21 men in less than a minute, and he's talking about it like he missed a bus. More men from Company C arrive. They secure the prisoners. They tend to the wounded. They search the bodies. An officer approaches Funk, demanding a report. Funk gives it. Short. Precise. No embellishment. The prisoners were freed by an enemy patrol. They were armed and preparing to attack. Funk encountered them. He engaged. The enemy was neutralized. Mission accomplished. The officer stares at Funk for a long moment. Then he nods. He walks away to organize the cleanup. Funk finishes his cigarette. He crushes it under his boot. He slings his Thompson over his shoulder. He walks back toward the main body of Company C. Behind him, medics are working on the German wounded. Soldiers are dragging bodies into a pile. The snow keeps falling, silent and indifferent. Holzheim is secure. The counterattack that could have destroyed Company C never happened. The town will remain in American hands. The advance will continue. The war will grind forward. And Leonard Funk will go back to work. The news spread fast. By nightfall, everyone in the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment knew the story. The first sergeant who walked into 90 armed Germans laughed and killed 21 of them in under a minute. By the next morning, the story had reached the 82nd Airborne Division headquarters. By the end of the week, it had reached 18 Airborne Corps. The officers wanted details. They wanted witness statements. They wanted confirmation that the story was real and not just another piece of war folklore. The witnesses confirmed everything. The 4 American guards gave identical accounts. Funk walked into the yard alone. The German officer held him at gunpoint. Funk laughed. Then he opened fire. The fight lasted less than 60 seconds. 21 Germans killed. 24 wounded. The rest surrendered. The guards were certain they would have been executed if Funk hadn't acted. Other members of Company C corroborated the story. They had heard the gunfire. They had responded immediately. By the time they arrived, the fight was over. Dead Germans were piled in the snow. Funk was standing in the middle, calm, reloading his weapon. One soldier later wrote in a letter home, "I've seen brave men before, but I've never seen anything like that." The German prisoners were interrogated. Their statements matched the American accounts. The officer who had captured Funk was a lieutenant in the 62nd Volksgrenadier Division. The patrol had found the prisoners by chance and freed them. They were preparing to attack the American positions from the rear when Funk appeared. The lieutenant ordered him to surrender. Funk laughed. The lieutenant was shot dead. The Americans opened fire. It was a massacre. One German prisoner, a corporal, told his interrogators, "The small American was the devil. He did not fear death. We feared him." By February 1st, 1945, the paperwork was moving up the chain of command. Funk's company commander recommended him for the Distinguished Service Cross. The battalion commander upgraded the recommendation to the Medal of Honor. The regimental commander agreed. The division commander signed off. The paperwork reached the European Theater headquarters. General Eisenhower himself reviewed it. On March 15th, 1945, the Medal of Honor was approved. Leonard Funk would not receive the medal until August 23rd, 1945, 3 months after Germany surrendered. President Harry S. Truman presented it to him in a ceremony at the White House. Funk stood at attention in his dress uniform, the Medal of Honor ribbon around his neck. Photographers took pictures. Reporters asked questions. Funk answered politely but briefly. He didn't like the attention. He didn't see himself as a hero. He saw himself as a soldier who had done his job. But the Medal of Honor was only part of the recognition. The Dutch government awarded Funk the Militair Willemsorde, the Netherlands' highest military decoration, equivalent to the British Victoria Cross. The award recognized his actions during Operation Market Garden. Funk became one of only a handful of American soldiers to receive the honor. By the end of the war, Leonard Funk's chest was covered in ribbons. Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart with 2 oak leaf clusters, Presidential Unit Citation, European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with 4 bronze stars, World War II Victory Medal, the Militair Willemsorde. He was the most decorated paratrooper in American history, but the recognition didn't change him. Funk remained quiet, humble, focused on his men. He never bragged. He never exaggerated. When asked about the farmhouse fight, he simply said, "I did what I had to do." The war continued. Company C pushed into Germany. They crossed the Rhine. They liberated concentration camps. They fought until the Germans surrendered on May 8, 1945. Funk was with them every step, leading from the front, keeping his men alive. When the war ended, Funk returned to Pennsylvania. He was 30 years old. He had spent 4 years in combat. He had jumped into 3 major operations. He had been wounded 3 times. He had killed more men than he could count. He was ready to go home. The Army wanted him to stay. They offered promotions. They offered career opportunities. Funk declined. He wanted a quiet life, a normal life. He left active duty in late 1945 and returned to the Pittsburgh area. He married his sweetheart, Emma. They had 4 daughters. He went to work for the Veterans Administration, eventually becoming the regional chief for Pittsburgh. He helped other veterans navigate benefits, find jobs, adjust to civilian life. He rarely talked about the war. His daughters grew up not knowing their father was a war hero. The Medal of Honor hung in a drawer, not on a wall. Funk didn't see himself as special. He was just a man who had done his duty. In the decades after the war, Leonard Funk's story faded from public memory. The Medal of Honor recipients were many. The stories of World War II were countless. Funk didn't write a book. He didn't give speeches. He didn't appear in documentaries. He lived quietly, worked hard, raised his family. But among the men who served with him, his legend never faded. Veterans of the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment told the story to their children, to their grandchildren. They gathered at reunions and raised toasts to Napoleon. They remembered the man who laughed in the face of death, the man who saved their lives in a snow-covered farmhouse in Belgium. In 1985, the 82nd Airborne Division honored Funk by naming a building at Fort Bragg after him. Funk Hall became part of the division's history, a reminder to every young paratrooper who passed through. This is what courage looks like. This is what leadership looks like. Funk attended the dedication ceremony. He was 69 years old. He walked with a cane. His body bore the scars of 3 Purple Hearts, frostbite, and decades of hard living. But his eyes were still sharp. His handshake was still firm. He stood at attention as the division commander praised his service. He accepted the honor with quiet dignity. A young paratrooper asked him, "Sir, what were you thinking when you laughed at those Germans?" Funk thought for a moment. Then he said, "I was thinking I was going to die, so I figured I might as well die laughing." The paratrooper asked, "Were you scared?" Funk said, "Of course I was scared. I was scared every day of the war. But fear doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with it." On November 20th, 1992, Leonard Alfred Funk Jr. died at the age of 76. He passed away in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, not far from where he'd been born. His funeral was held with full military honors. A detachment from the 82nd Airborne Division served as honor guard. Paratroopers carried his casket. A bugler played taps. The flag was folded and presented to his widow. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery in Section 35, grave 2373-4. His headstone is simple: name, rank, dates of birth and death, and the words, Medal of Honor. Thousands of heroes are buried at Arlington. Leonard Funk is one among many, but his story remains unique, because on a frozen afternoon in Belgium, one small man faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. He laughed instead, and in that laugh, he found the strength to do the impossible. The Germans he killed that day were buried in military cemeteries across Belgium and Germany. Their families mourned them. Their comrades remembered them. They were soldiers too. They had families. They had hopes. They were caught in a war that chewed up millions and spat out corpses. War is not glorious. It's not romantic. It's brutal. It's ugly. It's young men killing each other in the snow because old men made decisions thousands of miles away. But within that brutality, there are moments of extraordinary human courage. Moments when one person stands against the darkness and refuses to yield. Moments when a small man with a laugh and a Thompson submachine gun changes the course of a battle. Changes the outcome for his comrades. Saves lives. Makes history. Leonard Funk was not a superhero. He was not invincible. He was a man. A coal miner's son from Pennsylvania. 5'5", 140 pounds. He volunteered for a terrible job. He trained hard. He fought harder. He led his men with skill and courage. And on one frozen afternoon, he did something extraordinary. The story of that afternoon lived on. In reunions, in history books, in the quiet pride of the 82nd Airborne Division. And now, decades later, his story is remembered again. Because heroism doesn't fade, courage doesn't expire, and the laugh of Leonard Funk still echoes across the snow. War reveals who we are. It strips away pretense. It exposes the raw core of human nature. In combat, there is no time for philosophy, no room for doubt. There is only the moment, the decision, the action, and the consequence. Leonard Funk's moment came at a farmhouse yard in Belgium. He could have retreated. He could have surrendered. He could have died quietly, another casualty in a war that had already claimed millions. But he chose defiance. He chose to laugh. He chose to fight. And in that choice, he became something more than a soldier. He became a symbol of courage, not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it, not reckless bravado, but calculated action, not the love of violence, but the willingness to use it when necessary. Funk understood the cost of combat. He had seen friends die. He carried wounds. He knew that every trigger pull ended a life. But he also knew that hesitation could cost the lives of his men. So he didn't hesitate. The farmhouse fight lasted 45 seconds. In that span, 21 men died. 24 more were wounded. 90 prisoners were recaptured. A German counterattack was stopped before it began. Company C was saved. The advance continued. The war moved forward. But the meaning of those 45 seconds extends far beyond the tactical outcome. It speaks to something deeper, to the capacity of the human spirit to endure unimaginable pressure and still act, to the power of leadership that inspires men to follow even into the jaws of death, to the thin line that separates survival from annihilation, victory from defeat, life from death. Leonard Funk walked that line for 4 years. He jumped into darkness. He fought through hell. He bled. He survived. And when the war ended, he set down his weapon and returned to being a man, a husband, a father, a public servant. He didn't seek glory. He didn't capitalize on his fame. He simply lived. In an age that often worships celebrity and spectacle, Leonard Funk's quiet dignity stands as a rebuke. True heroism doesn't demand recognition. It doesn't perform for cameras. It simply acts when action is needed, then moves on. The snow has long since melted from that farmhouse yard. The bodies have been buried. The blood has washed away. But the story remains, because stories like this matter. They remind us what human beings are capable of. They show us that courage is real, that leadership matters, that one person, in the right place at the right time, can change everything. Leonard Funk laughed at death, and death blinked first.